Hey, hey, hey. It is Friday night. Good evening,
Yes, sir.
everybody.
Hey,
We
good evening. Happy Sabbath.
all right.
Happy
Happy
Sabbath.
Sabbath. We are here. We are here on the Pastors Roundtable. Listen, we're missing somebody, Pastor Paul. Who are we missing, man?
Well, maybe. No, we're not missing Stephanie. We're
Right.
missing Pastor Roger Wade tonight, man.
Yes. Missing Pastor Wade, but we know that his heart and his passion is with us. Ministry is gets us busy, right? And so
Yes,
we
it
know that
does. Yes, it
God is
does.
blessing
And
him.
listen, that brother stays on the road.
Listen,
For those of you that do not know, I would say more than almost 50+% of the time, Roger is joining us from a hotel room somewhere. Um, that
yes.
might be interesting for both folk to go back and count.
And you know
But
what?
yes. So, what's up?
That is true. No, that's true. Yeah. He's
Yeah.
somewhere in a hotel and joining us from there. And so we know that God is blessing his ministry. By the way, I'm looking on the chat here, and we have one of our devoted, actually two of our devoted people there with us tonight that I see on the chat. But we do have to say happy Sabbath to Mama Patrick. We gotta say it.
Gotta
She
say
is
it.
that's a hey, listen, that's like our PRT
She
mom,
needs,
man.
Yeah.
she needs to be the fourth host.
That's
There
right.
we go. Hey, listen,
Fourth host.
although we are missing Pastor Roger Wade, we are honored to have with us again Miss Stephanie Scott.
Oh
It's been an
yes.
honor and a privilege to work with her. As some of you know, she is part of the permanent PRT team. Most of the time, she's working behind the scenes with us, but it's always an honor for us to have her with us tonight. Stephanie, thank you for stepping in. We appreciate you. And we love having you with us.
That's right.
All right. I see Woo in the chat.
I
Yeah.
know. Hey, Woo. Haven't heard from him in a while, so it's good to see him. I saw Brian Taylor, aka BT,
BT.
our Southern Union communications person. So it's good to see him in the chat. Hey there.
Yes.
I
Yes,
see Rodney
indeed.
Smith is there.
That's right.
Rodney. Yes,
Hey.
indeed. I don't. Hey, listen. I got to say this too. I almost don't know what to do with myself tonight. Because TJ is producing tonight, and we don't always shout out TJ. What all TJ does
Yes.
behind the scenes, and I'm sitting here getting ready to put stuff on the screen and all. I'm like, TJ's got it. I can chillax right now, man.
Today.
TJ, we appreciate you, man. Appreciate you working behind the scenes there. So everybody, give a shout out to TJ tonight. Just say thanks,
DJ.
TJ. Type that in the chat. I know he will appreciate that for us to recognize him tonight.
So
And
this is
when
the
we
time
want,
that
go
go
ahead.
ahead, Stephanie.
No, I was just gonna say I'm sure we have quite a few viewers, and so if they want to send a happy Sabbath shout out as we begin this Sabbath, as well as letting us know where they're from, that'd be great too. So
Well, this is the time, Steph, that we're supposed to do something tonight to make sure that all these viewers know what's happening. And I don't know if you can share with us what we need. Share with us what we need to do tonight.
let's do that one more time. Share. We need you to hit that share button, hit the like button. This is a topic you don't want to miss because if you miss this topic, you may miss some money. Now,
Mm.
everybody needs some money, so we
Uh-oh.
want you to start sharing. And yes, it is okay to talk about money on the Sabbath. So we're going to be
Come on
talking
now.
about money.
That's right. That's right. Listen, I'm gonna talk about money to my church tomorrow too. So
Amen.
Hey, that's right.
yeah,
Listen, I'm gonna put a. Can I put a little extra on that tonight?
yeah.
Little things that you can do to help make sure that this stream gets in other people's feeds. Simply hitting the like button, simply typing something. The Facebook algorithm, the YouTube algorithm responds when you engage. And so, little thing you can do to help pay PRT is just type hello, just type good evening, happy Sabbath. Let us know where you're from. Hit that thumbs up button, hit the share button. All of those little things help trigger the algorithm to put this feed in front of somebody else. So, those are little ways that if you appreciate the ministry, what's happening here, that you can help.
That's right. That's right. Well, listen. I know we have a show on tonight, and we have some guests in there. So I'm going to start off, Pastor Paul, Stephanie, Scott. What is on the table tonight, Pastor Paul?
Whew, I'll take a stab at that, man. What is on the table tonight? We are talking about um, denominational retirees, people
Mm,
who spend their lives, and in the old days, it was 40 plus years working for the denomination, being a pastor, being a worker, a teacher, something in the denomination, and giving your life to people and to ministry. And we're taking a look behind the curtain as what happens when that's done. When you're no
mhm,
longer on stage, you're no longer up front, you're no longer getting the accolades and the recognition of what you used to get simply when you were in those positions. What is life like then? We want to dig into that. Sometimes we're finding that sometimes those individuals end up being out of sight and out of mind after all of those years. And so we want to just, again, pull that curtain back, see what it's like in preparation for that, what's life, not just for the employee, but what about their families? You've had a
right.
pastor. What about that pastor's wife? What about those pastors' kids? What about the widow of that pastor? Or
Mm,
those are things that we want to talk about tonight. These are very deep conversations. It pulls some heartstrings. We have seen in recent times some
mhm,
issues that I think made us feel very uncomfortable when we saw when that curtain was pulled back just a little
mhm.
bit. So we want to talk about that tonight. We want to kind of normalize this conversation
That's right.
so that we can make sure that we're doing the best that we can for those who have given so much.
All right. So we know what's on the table. Now, Stephanie, Scott, tell us who's at the table tonight.
Mm.
So this evening we have two wonderful guests. We have Dr. Everton Ennis, and allow both of our guests actually to introduce themselves. We have Dr. Ennis, and we also have Elaine Allston, who was here. And we don't want to steal their thunder, but I am super excited to have them here at the table with us. And I think that the information will be valuable to all of our guests this evening. So, all of our
All right.
viewers, excuse me, this evening.
Well, let's bring them on. Let us
All
bring them
right.
on. All
Hey,
right. Look
hey,
at
hey,
that.
hey, hey, there
Hey.
they are.
Well, listen, I'm gonna let Pastor Paul kind of do this. You know, this is his. He has a little special time limit that he gives every guest to kind of introduce themselves. So I'm gonna let Pastor Paul go ahead and do that today.
Hey, let's do it. Let's do it. First of all, to our guests, we are delighted and excited to have you with us in the space tonight. We thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedules. Dr. Ennis, you know we've been trying for a long time to hook this up. We are grateful. And Elaine, we know that you kind of joined us last minute and you were ready and willing to come on. So thank you so very much. But before we begin, I'm going to give you, or I'm going to give you an opportunity to address the audience. But just before we do that, I'm going to ask Dr. Henry if he just have a word of prayer, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to address our audience tonight before we jump into our questions.
Let's do it. Let's do it, Father. Lord, we're just so grateful, God, that you've given us this platform to talk about ministry to the retirees and the family of the retiree. I ask God that as we go through this conversation tonight, that you will give us a lot of information and that you will inspire us, God, so that we could do more for that target population. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Henry. Now, to our guests, I know we did not read your full bios and resumes and all of the accolades and things that you guys have accumulated over the years. But again, we're so grateful to have you with us. But we'd like to give you an opportunity just to give our audience a little bit of scope and breadth of as far as where you are and what you're doing, what's going on in your world. And we'd like to start with you tonight, Elaine, and then we're going to go to Dr. Ennis. Elaine, we're going to give you as much time as you want. Everton, we're going to give you about 37.5 seconds because you're a preacher and we know what preachers do. All right, we'll start. Miss Alston.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for having me. And I'm only going to take about 30 seconds. My name is Elaine Allston. I'm the Assistant Director for the Office for Regional Conference Ministry and the Regional Conference Retirement Plan. And I have been there since, I came July of 2002. So been there a little over 20 years, and my primary responsibility is working with the conferences, with Mutual of America, our vendor that pays the retirement benefits and the retirees. And thank you for having me.
All right. Praise
All
God.
right, Dr. Ennis.
Thank you so very much for having me here this evening. Like you said before, we've been trying to do this now for a few months, but we're finally here tonight. I'm Everton A. Ennis. I serve as the General Vice President for the South Atlantic Conference here in the Carolinas and the state of Georgia. And that part of Georgia that does not belong to Southeastern, I should say.
All right, all right, all right.
And we're excited about this new ministry that we launched just a few months ago, August the 26th. And I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight about legacy ministries.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you guys again so very much. We're excited to hop into this discussion right now.
All right. Well, let's go in. We're going to dive right in. So, Miss Elaine Allston, again, thank you for coming on the show as well, Dr. Ennis. Um, Alston, can you give us a definition of retirement?
Mm.
Retirement. What does that mean, number one? And then the process in which a worker might go through while entering this phase of their life's journey.
Okay. So I went to Webster, the expert, and Webster
Okay.
defines retirement as an act of retiring, the state of being retired, withdrawal from one's position or work occupation from active working. And the last one part says, and the age at which one normally retires or reaches retirement, a place of seclusion or privacy.
Mm.
In what I do, the process for a active church worker, currently we ask that you give us 6 months to process the entire retirement. So for example, if you're looking at going out June of next year, by January of 2024, you need to notify the conference office you're looking at retiring so we can get the process going. What I tell people all the time when I do a presentation to active workers, which is very important for anyone at any stage, is to look at your service record. We have so many that get to the very end ready to retire, and especially those that have gone to different conferences, and we find out that their year's missing. It takes time for them to go to that other conference or for the HR person to contact that HR person at that conference, and it can delay the process. So be sure you check your service record every year, that every place you've worked at a regional conference is recorded and it's accurate. And that makes the process so much simpler. The rest of the process, I would say, it's important for those who are married to share the process with your spouse. We find a lot of spouses who have no clue about their, and I can't say just pastors, because it's teachers, it's office workers, everyone. They don't share with their spouses, and so the spouses are clueless as to what's available, what the options are, and it happens a lot even in death. Unfortunately, when we have retirees that pass, the spouse has no clue that they were supposed to get benefits or that they weren't getting benefits or that they signed a waiver that they're not getting benefits.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can I just dig in a little further on that? When we say retirement, that sounds like no more money. Retirement, I'm not getting paid no more. But I still got to eat. I still got to pay the bills.
Right.
So when we talk about retirement, as far as what it is, for a denominational worker, what does that mean financially for a worker?
Good question. And that is one of the not main reasons, but I would say important reasons as to why the Regional Conference Retirement Plan was started. And let me give just a quick Reader's Digest version history. Back in the 90s, the North American Division, where all conferences, whether black or white, were under the North American Division Retirement Plan, it was a defined contribution plan known as DC. No, excuse me. I'm sorry. Defined benefits plan known as the DB plan. And so they were looking at changing it, North American Division was, to a defined contribution plan. Well, the regional presidents and officers decided to do their actuarial studies and found out that if they started their own plan, that their retirees would be making more. So on our plan, you only need a maximum of 30 years of service to retire. On the NAD plan, 40 is the maximum. So the plan was started January 2000. That's the line in the sand. If you were with a regional conference January 2000, and you did not sign a waiver to stay with North American Division, then all of your years from the North American Division carried over into the retirement plan. Now they exchanged money to pay for those, as they call it, the frozen plan now. But that's how our plan got started. So currently, a retiree's check is about 67% of what they're making in retirement. That's just the retirement pension. Then you add on Social Security, and then if the retiree has any other savings, a 403B, or if they work somewhere else, 401k. So our retirees are doing very well. They're thankful for the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that Elder McCoy would always say, and what we wanted to do in retirement, is we wanted our workers to retire with dignity.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that is
Can I,
awesome. That is phenomenal.
can, can I add? There is a true distinction between the regional retirement plan and the North American Division plan. And so, even though I'm the host, I think it is worth mentioning at this point that I also am the HR director for one of our regional conferences. And I have I'm not even sure if it's a privilege necessarily, because the North American Division retirement process is a little more cumbersome than the
Mm.
regional retirement process. But I do, in fact, process North American Division retirement applications. And on average, the North American Division plan is paying out roughly about 33% of workers' salary. And again,
Mm-hmm.
as Elaine has mentioned, that's for 40 years of service
Wow.
versus the 30 years of service, and that's full. And there's some other things that happen within the retirement plans, both of them. So IRS guess has some guidelines about when a person can retire. So a person may not necessarily do all 30 or even all 40 years, but they may opt to retire once they hit retirement age, which the earliest is 55. And that's generally, no matter where you work, whether you work for the church or whether you work for IBM, 55 is the point in which you are able to retire.
So
Mm.
if I did my math right, it sounds like the regional retirement plan basically doubles, close to doubles what the NAD plan is doing. Is that correct?
Correct. Correct.
Come on
and
now, church
and
school
for
math
less
kicking in.
years of service.
And for
Right.
less years of service. Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, that brings us to this question. So both of you, Elaine and Everton, and in your roles, you see a lot of folk retire, and in that role, you get lots of questions per time. Maybe Elaine more so you than Everton. But as you see those questions and you see the issues that our workers face, even under the regional retirement plan, what are some of the bigger issues that you can think of that impact or that affect retirement for our workers?
Well,
Mm.
on the one hand, the financial security is always a concern. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where Elaine comes in. The regional conference retirement plan is a godsend in that regard. Is it perfect? Is it foolproof? No. But is it, as compared to the NAD plan that older workers used to be under? This is so much better to be able to retire with a larger income, approximately twice as much, while being required to work for 10 years less. I mean, by any standard, that's a tremendous improvement. Now, apart from the financial perspective of the conversation, there is also, I have found since coming to the conference office just over a year ago, the challenge that some retired workers, and I want to make sure that also in the conversation that our audience recognizes that we're talking about retired workers, not retired pastors, because sometimes we forget that there are more than pastors who work for this church. And
Mhm.
so we have our educators, we have our office staff, we have our ABC staff, we have our campground personnel, so
Mhm.
that we have quite a few people. And in those conferences that still have a literature evangelism program, you have credentialed colporteurs who also derive benefits from different plans. And so when you put all of that together, there are some more social needs that sometimes go
Mm.
by the way. For example, I have found that people are tending to feel a little bit forgotten. When
Yeah.
people retire, they feel as though they're not recognized anymore. Some of them. We do have what we call active retirees, who, in the case of pastors, may continue to hold down the church every now and then for the conference, but not everybody gets to do that. And depending on where they retire to, what community, what part of a state, they may or may not be in close contact and communion with other fellow or former workers like themselves. And so there's that piece that we have found to be very, very hard on them. The same thing applies to just being in the know. So we have community. There's a sense of a loss of community, again, depending from person to person. And then there's a sense
Mm.
of that disconnect because in several cases I've discovered, because folk were on the conference's email system now as former employees, and with our cybersecurity policies and so forth, as was explained to me, they don't get emails, and they don't know who's being hired, and they don't know who is in the pastoral rotation, and they don't know who's transferred to which school as educators. And when you're doing this for 30, 40 years, and all of a sudden, bam, it's not there anymore, that can be quite debilitating.
Wow. Wow.
Mm.
Mhm. One
Yeah.
thing also that I found in talking with workers and those retiring is there's several things. One, unfortunately, we as a people don't plan. We don't save. And I
Mhm.
recommend to all of them that they get a financial advisor so that as they
Wow.
approach retirement, they are paying off bills, they've paid off car loans or whatever, so that they have a plan and they can live more comfortably. The other thing is, unfortunately, they don't have hobbies or outside interests that are non-work, non-church related. And so
Wow.
therefore, when they retire, they are lost because all they know is church work or doing something at the church. So I encourage people to get a hobby, have a life outside of work so that when you do retire, you have something else to occupy.
Mhm.
I can remember when we were in school, they told us that there was a certain lifespan that pastors lived after retirement.
Mm,
I saw Wu put something in the chat. I wish I could remember what the actual numbers were, but I know that there was a significant difference between black pastors and white pastors, the lifespan after retirement. We didn't really hear what that was particularly attributed to, but it was a fascinating statistic. Everton, I don't know if there's anything more that you want to add to that concept of that individual who has been up front. They have been
Right.
leading in the work. Their
Mhm.
their counsel has been sought after. They are the go-to person, and now they still go to church, but now they're sitting in the pew, and it's
Mhm.
almost feeling like they've kind of been pushed to the side. It's that their sense of value. Can you speak a little bit more to that in terms of what you have seen, what you've experienced, what you've heard?
Mhm.
Absolutely. And over the years, I have 22 years of pastoral ministry under my belt up to this point. And over the years, because I have a natural draw toward older people and seniors, so they're people I stay in touch with.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
you kind of build a sense of the need that's there. By the way, that's my personal definition of ministry. It is the process of discovering and meeting needs. And so, as we talk about the legacy ministries, you see how we're in South Atlantic focusing on specific needs. And you're correct. When a person has been in the limelight as a pastor, a conference president, a departmental director, an educator, principal, and all of a sudden, and by the way, let me hasten to say, we're not here, we're not bashing anyone. This is not something that someone intentionally decided, oh, I'm just going to forget that person.
That's good.
It's part of the human experience where, because we're not the ones retired, we're not thinking the way retirees think. We're not feeling and sensing and experiencing what they sense, feel, and experience. And so it's easy when that's not my part of the journey. I'm not tuned in necessarily to what that person is going through who's walking that path right now. But one day we are going to retire if the
Mhm.
Lord delays is coming, or if death doesn't strike us first, we will retire. And then we will understand. And so when
Yeah.
I started to realize that people were going to emails that no longer existed just because they weren't employees anymore. And that's crushing for me to hear a person who gave their practically all the whole adult life to the church. But
Mhm.
that was not something somebody did and said, I'm gonna hurt the person that way. But does it hurt? Yes. I can
Mhm.
tell you, I've talked to folk and they hurt. And so we reasoned together, and I was committed to saying, yeah, we've got to do something about this. I praise God for my fellow administrators in South Atlantic because once I brought I alerted them to what I'm discovering, and they were like, what? 'Cause again, it's not something that somebody planned to do. But
Right.
then once that sense came to their attention, they're like, okay, what do we do? Because we can't let this continue. Because we cannot know that our fellow workers who are now retired feel this way and their families. So that's what I want to kind of segue is that the legacy
Right.
ministries, and we talk in just a minute about what that means specifically. There are categories of people in our pews who have given themselves to this denomination. Some have served directly, like pastors, teachers, other frontline workers, and there are those who have served indirectly, their spouses and their children. They might not have been on payroll, but they have served. And they, like their employer or employee, relative or family member, have given in terms of sacrifice. There's something
Mhm.
that they lost serving this church.
Mhm.
Mm.
So you just went into this legacy ministries, right? As a program that can help still foster that relationship. And you mentioned a few things, Dr. Ennis. You mentioned surviving spouses. And I know you want to go, back into the legacy ministries and what this entails, but with the surviving spouses, what are there any stories out there of surviving spouses being isolated and how that motivated you and your team to create this legacy ministries? And I think that will kind of resonate with our viewers because there may be some people out there, they don't even know what legacy ministries is all about. And they want to know more about it and how this can impact those
Yes,
who are surviving spouses, right? So can you tell us a little bit about that? Any stories and so
thank
forth?
you.
And let's get
Thank you.
into the mechanics of the legacy ministries. Go ahead.
Legacy Ministries was created in the South Atlantic Conference this year. We had our official and public launch Sabbath, August 26th at the Atlanta Berean Church. And this is our response to the needs that we have been unearthing. As I
Mhm.
mentioned it before, my definition of ministry is the process of identifying and meeting needs. And so we realized, and I've interviewed quite a few people one on one, and we've come to realize that uh, there are people who feel forgotten. There are people, and that includes both some of the retired workers. And again, we're not saying retired pastors because we have other people who worked for the church. And
Mhm.
we're talking specifically about our full-time employees now. These are the ones who have served those years. And then sometimes we have workers who pass away, and that can be male or female. I had one male surviving spouse recently share with me, and in a forum that we had, then they used to go out to other couples together. on
Wow.
trips and so forth. And now that's not there anymore because
Mhm.
the spouse died and
Mhm.
so forth. We have children of denominational workers, both those who are alive, those who are retired, and those who are deceased. And while it's a blessing, a tremendous blessing and a privilege to serve the Lord as employees of the church, the truth be told, church work does take something out of you. It
Mm.
takes something from your family. When as an educator's family or a pastor's family, and you're moving several times throughout your career, oftentimes for these children in the middle of a school year, the expectation to be the perfect kid in the church because your mama is the teacher or your daddy is the pastor, there's a psychological impact on that sometimes
Mercy.
results in anger and angst toward even the church.
My
There's
Mhm.
Lord.
so many workers' children who no longer go to church.
Yeah.
I personally
Yeah.
know some.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so we're trying through this ministry. So how do we do a restorative ministry? How do we reconnect? How do we re-enfranchise those who feel disenfranchised? How do we bring about again that sense of belonging and community? I give you another experience. In the month of September, I had what we call the virtual listening tour, where created different Zoom meetings to listen to retired workers and surviving spouses and workers' children. And I'll never forget the first meeting I held and hosted was the retired workers, broad daylight, around 2 in the afternoon. And so many of them were on there. And they were like children in a sandbox. Some of them hadn't seen each other in 5, 6 years, and they all live
Oh,
in this big city. And COVID, by the way, did not help that situation.
no. No.
Wow.
And then here's another piece. Colleagues, fellow retirees of theirs passed away. They couldn't go to the funeral. That
Mhm.
that grief lingers, and so legacy ministries is playing such an important role. Somebody said on that particular Zoom, can we do this every month? And like, we sure can.
Mhm.
So we're setting up the Zoom rooms and to turn it over to them. I'm not going to host it. That's something that they can do with their own creativity, their own space, their own time, something to look forward to. Somebody said, can we have a weekly prayer meeting? Just come together to pray. And we can even
Mhm.
pray for the conference administration. See, they want to be involved. They don't want to be forgotten. They don't want to be sidelined. Because retirement doesn't mean that they have no more usefulness. It just means that it's a different phase in which they can continue to serve as volunteers. And because of the life of service, that's all they know is to serve. And so we want to facilitate that desire that they have.
So let me just say one quick thing. So do you reach out to the retirees? Do you how do you get in contact with them in your conference so that they could be on this Zoom call that you had, or so how do you reach out to them?
So thankfully, as at least as far as the pastors go, the retired pastors, I pretty much had everybody in my phone already because I
Okay.
would periodically send them group messages, and I've been doing that for years, long before I came into the office. So that was just, like I said before, I love interacting with senior people, and so that was just a natural thing for me. Now, last week on Sunday, which is November 4, we actually had our first event. First event, we had the Legacy Ministries conference. We call it, um, you know, uh, oh, it will come back to me just a second. Affirm. We
Mhm.
call it the Affirm Conference. We want to affirm them. And so, Sister Marty Schneider, Ella Don Schneider's wife, our late North American Division president, great friend of mine. Marty is a surviving spouse. She was the keynote speaker. And after that, we had two different tracks of three breakout sessions, one for the retired workers, one for the surviving spouses, and one for the workers' children. And we had track one, track two of all of
Wow.
those. It was wonderfully attended, and that was just the first event. And I'm telling you, I was jumping from room to room in the Zoom space, and just checking out what different people were doing. And we brought in a psychologist here in Atlanta, an Adventist, to be with the workers' children for track two, just to listen, to facilitate. And when we say workers' children, the steering committee, which I chair from the conference office, because this comes under the office of general vice president,
Mhm.
I intentionally did not go into the second track where Dr. Montpremier was facilitating that conversation. I wanted them to have a safe space. I'm a conference official. I didn't want to in any way make them want to feel like they couldn't talk and say what they want to say. And so these are some of the things, just creating that safe space for them. And I put them with
Mhm.
my psychologist. I've not asked her what they said. I don't care. I don't want to know. What's important is that they got to say how they feel. And in fact, that particular workshop and discussion was entitled is it a safe space for me to say how I feel? That was the title of that session right there,
Oh,
right? Because many of them are carrying a lot of grief for many, many years. Some of them have seen their denominational employed parents either in reality mistreated or the perception of being mistreated. They carry that
mhm.
pain. And so we see this again as a restorative ministry seeking to reconnect people and to re engage people and to help people to know, you know what? You serve this church. Now this church is here to serve you.
Hmm.
Mm.
Mm.
Oh, I wanted to add a few things if I could, just really briefly, because I know we're going to have to reset in just a moment. There's a couple things that I want to mention that people may not be aware of. One of those things is the conferences do offer a relocation after retirement. Now, the reason for the worker, and the reason I mentioned that is because a lot of times people don't know, but a worker sometimes they're isolated. They may feel isolated because they're not aware that they have the potential to be moved, the cost of moving and relocated to an area where they may have family members or where they may have a better support system. That is one of the benefits that a retiree has. And so I just wanted to mention that is something that can help our retirees. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, and I saw it in the chat, and so I just want to reiterate. Um, Retirement planning and planning for your future starts at the point of employment and not at
Mm,
the point that you're ready to retire. And so I think Wu said something along the lines of oftentimes we have, as a denomination, talked a lot about the imminent return of Christ. And I do believe that to be the case. I do think imminent is a little bit relative from the standpoint that it does not preclude us planning. And so, if you're a new worker, if you're a middle aged person, it is never too early to start planning for retirement. And as Elaine has mentioned, it doesn't just include paying down bills and getting rid of debt. Some of that is investment, diversifying your income, putting your assets in a trust. There are a lot of things that people can do to prepare. The final thing I'll add is that, and I think I saw Rodney's comment in the chat. If a person, if one of our workers in the regional retirement, and it's true even for the North American division, retires, passes away prematurely before they hit retirement, there still are benefits to the spouse for them to receive additional money. And so a lot of times people are not aware. I will give Elaine big props because she tries to make sure that the workforce, the conferences are educated, the regional conferences are educated on the benefits of the plan. And we wanted to share this information to our viewers because a lot of times there's a perception that the church is not really trying to take care of their workers. But I will say that the regional plan has been a blessing. We have had pastors in South Central Conference pass away, their spouses have definitely benefited financially and received that workers benefits after the person had passed away. And so, but I will emphasize service records are critical. And so if you happen to be on this viewing this program either live or you'll view it after you'll view the replay, be sure to contact your local conference HR department and ask to see your service record to make sure that it is accurate. One final thing, and I'm gonna shut up, and that is for the regional retirement plan, and I have said this to our workers. If you are working in a regional conference and you leave and go to a state conference, your service record years that can be counted toward the regional plan will be suspended until you come back to the regional plan.
Oh
So
my.
if you work, for example, in, let's say,
Oh
Central
my.
States, and then you go to, let's say, Florida conference, the
Oh my,
years
Dr.
that you
Henry.
work
Oh
in
my.
Florida conference do not count toward your regional conference retirement plan.
Come on
And
home.
there
Come
is
on home.
no defined benefit plan for the NAD plan. So I'm not talking to anybody specifically, but if you know that you fall into that category.
Come on home.
If I
Come
could
on
add
home.
what Stephanie just said, because it's two separate plans. It's the
Right.
regional retirement plan that is a defined benefits plan. And if you went to Florida, that's a defined contribution. The other thing I want to add, she mentioned that's important. When the plan first started, if an active worker died, the spouse would automatically get 66 and 2/3% of what that worker would have got if we treat them like they retired the day they died. Last year, I believe it was January 2022,
Mhm.
the retirement board voted to increase that to 100%. So God
Correct.
forbid an active worker dies today, that spouse is going to get 100%, the same figure that
Ooh.
that worker got in retirement. And I just wanted to mention that. I think that's important.
And I believe they also voted to help and assist with some of the funeral expenses. Not a lot, but I
Yes, we
think they
send them
were helping with funeral
$1,000
expenses.
to help with funeral expenses. Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay,
Praise
so
God.
so
Praise
Sister
God. Praise
Elaine,
God.
just for the benefit of our viewers who are like, what? So so that 100% goes for how long that the surviving
Their
spouse would receive?
lifetime, the lifetime of
Lifetime.
the spouse.
Just wanted
If
that
it's
to
a
be
single
clear.
person, if
Got
they
it.
children,
Yeah.
then it's only for 10 years. But for a spouse, it's for the lifetime.
Yes,
And,
because there are people who are of the idea that the church is doing nothing for its workers, and
Mercy.
we have progressed
exactly.
past those days.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, listen, that is the great and the bright side of this. I'm going to take us back to the dark side for just a moment, just before we go to break. I'm going to
Uh-oh.
leave you with this, and I'm going to get your response to it when we come back from our break. But here's a scenario that I think is very real. Um, a lot of times, workers, pastors in particular, will spend hours and months and years away from their own families, looking after, checking on, visiting members who are sick, members who are shut in, people who have issues, helping other people. And it's not a good thing, but sometimes they do it to the disadvantage of their own homes. And so here you've got a spouse who has, for 30, sometimes 40 plus years, shared their spouse with the church and the community.
Mm.
That individual dies, that worker dies. And now we have seen this. We have seen this even since we've had our retirement plan. We have seen that spouse now forgotten again by the same church who their spouse has spent all of these years. They sacrificed. This legacy ministry is something that is one of the first of its kind. When we come back, I want to talk about, are there things that we have built into this legacy ministry, or are we thinking about how do we avoid finding minister spouses, worker spouses in those type of a situations? Is there a way to be intentional about that? Number two, another thing to think about when we come back, we have also in recent years seen ministers who have retired. We've seen GoFundMe's go up because families
Mm.
have monies to take care of them in nursing homes or to put home health care to be with them. And we know that whole scenario, that's a lot of work. What when it comes to those type of things, are we falling short? Is there, and as a response to those issues we've seen, and we talked about family children who are left with the care of their parents who have worked for the church for so long. I have seen their Facebook posts, and there is this bitterness that comes alongside of that. I want us to speak to that in just a few minutes when we come right back.
All right, let's do a reset.
All
Wow.
right.
Listen, you
Listen,
gave us a lot to chew on, Pastor Paul. That was a lot.
Well,
But it
I
was
wanted to
good
give
stuff.
them time to formulate that, so I
Right.
said, let me
It was
throw it
good
at them
stuff.
before we come to this break, so that I have some time to
No, it
figure
was good
something
stuff.
out to share with us. Listen, if you
Yeah.
were just joining us tonight, if you've just come in tonight's edition of the Pastors Roundtable, welcome. We're glad to have you with us. We have two wonderful guests with us, Elaine Allston and Dr. Ennis is with us. We are excited to have both of them tonight as we're talking about what happens on the backside of ministry. Moses,
Right.
at one time, was on the backside of the desert. What happens on the backside of the ministry when you're done in retirement? We've had some fascinating information that we've had tonight. But listen, we always have fascinating discussions here at the Pastors Roundtable. Let me go to Stephanie. Stephanie, if somebody has missed any of these discussions at the PRT, how do they find out more? Where do they go? What do they need?
Wow, I'm not even sure how many episodes we've done, but you go to YouTube or you can go to our website. You can go to
That's right.
YouTube and type in the Pastors Roundtable, and you will find at least 6 previous seasons with numbers of programs that include a lot of different topics that will definitely spark your interest.
Wow. Hey, Dr. Henry, is there someplace else besides Facebook and YouTube that you can go?
Oh yeah, the Pastors Roundtable, man, .com. Come to our website,
Not live.
Oh,
That's right. Come to our
The
Pastors Roundtable Live. That's right.
PRT.live.
But if you go,
over there.
watch this. If
No,
you go to
over
the
here.
website and you want to donate, can I talk about donating to the Pastors
Oh, we're talking about money
Roundtable?
again. Okay, let's
We
do it.
have the Cash App. That's right, the Cash App. So it's your $, of course, the pastors. Actually, it's Pastor RT. All right. So that is our Cash App. It's a $, there. The Pastors RT. You could donate to the Pastors Roundtable.
And good. Listen,
And
when
as
you go to
always, we want them to share. We want you to
oh,
share, share, share,
yes,
share.
yes. You got to share this before we get back and bring our guests back. But listen, when you go to the Pastors RT.live, Pastors Roundtable.live, what is it again? TJ, put that back up there. That's a shame. The PRT.live. When you go there, you will find things there that you will not find on the YouTube channel or on the Facebook page, and that is the show notes. You've listened to a show and you say, how do I get in touch with that guest? How do I find out more about the guest? You can always go to the PRT.live, and each of the episodes are listed there, and there's a section there for show notes where you can go and drill down some information. I don't know, maybe we might even have some documents or some other links that you can go and find some of the information that you've heard on an edition of the Pastors Roundtable that you just really needed to find out more about. So we thank you for your support. We thank you for checking out those the website. And one more time, Stephanie, we're getting ready to bring our guests back. What do we need people to do in these last few
We need
minutes?
them to share, hit the like button, put a comment there. We definitely want to make sure that this information goes out far and wide. Goes out far and wide. This is definitely valuable information. And I'll add, it's not just valuable information for the church. There are a lot of things that people just working in the secular world can benefit from. So.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right, let's bring our guests back on, and let's hop into. I left you guys with some hot potatoes there.
Before
Let's see.
you get the hot
Okay.
potato, there was a specific question. I just want to throw it in really quick because I do think it's pertinent, and that is TLF Ministry asked the question. Please address the
Yeah.
lump sum when a worker retires. So let me just throw that out there real quick, or if you want to, either or. Do you want to take it, Elaine,
Yeah.
or do you want me
Go
to
ahead,
take it?
Elaine.
I'll do it real quick. The church has provided, and it's not just regional conferences, the Adventist Church has provided what's called a lump sum retirement allowance, and it's money to help the worker transition into retirement. On our plan, if you have 30 or more years of service, it's basically 25% of 1 month's salary times 20 years is the max. If you have under 30 years of service, it's 12.5% times your 1 month salary times however many years you have. And you get that in a lump sum. If you choose to take it, we have to take out the mandatory 20% to send to IRS, or you can roll it over 100%. You can split it. If it's say $20,000 and you want 10, you would only take the 20% off the 10 and roll over the other 10,000 100%. So that is an additional gift that you get as a worker when you retire.
And
And
Elaine, if I may
roughly,
add,
Hold on, right there. That's that clip. That's going to be a short at the end of this show. That TJ is going to cut that piece out, and that's going to be
so you can
that's
do the
going to be on a reel
calculations
sometime.
yourself. But the average,
so
if
which
the
month
average
salary are we talking about? Is that the highest?
It's usually your last month's
your
salary.
last month.
Okay.
So the
All right.
average roughly for 30 years, rough numbers, just rough numbers, is probably right around between 20 and 24,000 before taxes for a full 30, and that gets paid out to the retiree. And again, it helps transition. That's in addition to everything else.
And
Okay. All
Dr.
right.
Pollard is in the chat asking, what's the non-regional retirement formula for that lump sum?
Mm,
It's the same. It's for the NAD plan. It's the same formula for the NAD plan.
Okay.
okay. All right. Okay. Let's get back to that oven and see how those hot potatoes cooked. Um, So that issue, Everton, in that just phenomenal thing that you've created with the legacy ministry there in South Atlantic, are there intentional efforts built into that, or is there a plan to, when you deal with that spouse of the worker who is now widowed and seems to be kind of a left on their own and forgotten? You've mentioned some things before about getting them together and having prayer meetings and getting them to kind of fellowship with each other. But what about when there's like, I mean, yeah, there are preachers who are going to other people's houses, cutting down trees, limbs, and doing those kinds of things. What about that widow who they're on their own now? Kids are grown. Maybe they didn't have any. They're gone. They have stuff that needs to be done. And sometimes it's like the same church families that were being taken care of by the pastor, they forget about that. What is there anything in this plan, in this legacy ministry, that addresses things like that?
Yes, that's a great question, and two-sided answer. The first side is that Legacy Ministries is still new and emerging, so we are
Mhm.
still perfecting it, so to speak. But what we have already started doing, in addition to having like the Zoom events, we have started saying to our pastors already, please help us identify in your congregations who the retired workers are, who the surviving spouses of denominational workers are. By the way, I should say something that I don't think we want to miss tonight. I'm coming back to a question, I'm still on it.
Mhm.
We want it to be known by our viewers that Legacy Ministries, which is created by South Atlantic Conference, it doesn't just include the persons who were employees of South Atlantic Conference. Let me illustrate
Ah,
what
that's
that
good.
means. If a
Okay.
person worked in the North Pacific Union and they retired in North Carolina somewhere, they attend the South Atlantic Conference Church, they're automatically included.
Ah, that's
If
good.
right, so we're
That's
being
good.
inclusive in that we're having not just pastors but all full-time employees. That's one level of inclusion. The other level of inclusion is regardless of where you were a denominational worker, if you're in South Atlantic and attend one of our churches, this ministry is for you. Same thing if you're a surviving spouse, if your spouse lived and worked in Greater New York Conference and he or she passed away, you moved down here with your children, you're involved and included in this ministry. So we're here to cater to you regardless of where your paycheck came from, as long as you were a full-time denominational
Yeah.
worker. All
And,
right.
and let me just say something on behalf of our members too, and that's I know it sounds like maybe my question was kind of beating them up just a little bit, but keep in mind a lot of our workers and pastors do not retire in the fields or in the churches that they served.
Mhm.
A lot of times they retire in places where people do not know them. They have not been in the forefront of those places. And so it's not necessarily that far fetched to think that they don't get the same kind of attention that they had before, because oftentimes they retire in places where they simply just are not known.
Hmm.
Yes.
I want to address the question you asked earlier before the break about, you know, we have a lot of cases, unfortunately, where a pastor dies and they're doing a GoFundMe account,
Yes.
trying to raise money just to bury the person.
Mm.
This is also important. As active workers, we have life insurance with the church. But the minute you retire at midnight, that life insurance goes away. So it's very important for you to have your own private life insurance policy, burial policy, something so that your family can at least bury you and not have to beg for money.
Let me
Mm,
let me let me give a clarification right there. For all of the conferences that are on the evidence risk plan, actually their life insurance is portable. So the everybody who
True.
is working for the church can take their life insurance with them. And generally speaking, the benefit of taking the life insurance with you, which is called portable life insurance, is that because you're in a larger group, the rates are lower. So a lot of people don't understand, particularly younger people, the older you get, every 5 years, you get into a new age rated category and your life insurance goes up because you become a higher risk because you're getting older and you may die. So a person who is in their 50s, 60s are maybe paying 2 or 3 times more than a person for their premiums than a person who's 24. But in a group, you can get a better rate for a higher amount. So a lot of people have seen the Colonial Pin Life commercials where you can get, X number of dollars of life insurance for $8 or $12 a month. That's usually a very low amount, a very low policy, which barely will cover funeral expenses. Whereas if you stay and take the portable life insurance with you when you retire, then you may be able to get more dollars and at a lower cost. I'll put it like that. So yes, that they can take that.
Pastor Paul, I must throw in here as well that South Atlantic Conference went even a step further. And I'm not sure if this is done in other regional conferences. We have a unique plan where a person can, through signing on when they get to age 60, to a life insurance policy that the conference pays for. They don't have to
Hmm.
pay 1 cent, and the conference is the beneficiary up to 70% of the
Oh,
benefits,
that's
but
nice.
the person's beneficiary is the recipient of the 30% in event a death occurs. So that ensures that there are funds laid aside, and this kicks in after retirement. I may hasten to add that this
Mhm.
benefit is only payable after retirement, so that there is a little nest egg to make sure that final expenses can be covered.
Wow.
And
Everett,
I got
South
a question on
is
that.
the only one doing that. You all are
yes.
the only ones doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
what I
we're
was
a
going to
great
ask.
conference.
wow,
I was
that's
going to
powerful
ask,
stuff, man.
do conferences talk? Do you guys
South
share
Atlantic is
this
doing
thing
great
across
things, man.
conference lines?
We
Uh,
we do share information. It's the same thing. South Central has a supplemental retirement. So in addition to the regional retirement plans, South Central's workers also get an additional pension plan supplemental for the rest of their life, and their spouse gets the benefits of that too. So some of this is has been born out of the need of those horror stories. And so
yes.
I
Mm,
think we are
okay.
collectively trying to address those issues. So I'm really pleased, and I will be calling
Praise
Dr.
God.
Dr. Ennis to talk
Praise
about
God.
that one.
Well, listen, when we talk about the legacy ministries, and again, Dr. Ennis, we just want to applaud you and your
Mhm.
conference for what you have done in taking the lead and the initiative on this. I don't know that we can say enough about the heart that you guys have put into this. So again, on behalf of our retirees and our workers, and even our current workers who will,
Yeah.
graduate into this ministry, we say thank you. If you had an opportunity to speak to or to say something to the other conferences that may be contemplating something like this, what would you say to them? What counsel would you give them in regard to creating something like a legacy ministry? And how intentional do you think that they should be when it comes to a ministry like this, no matter what they choose to call it? What would you share to the conference that is curious, that's interested in trying to begin something like this?
I would definitely say this needs to be done. We're
Hmm.
talking about three demographics of members in our congregations, and some who are not there because of whatever ill feelings, etc., because of how they perceive things might have been done, their family was treated, and so forth. It is worth the effort. I can tell you, there's a tremendous satisfaction that comes with seeing the response, the reaction when people realize the conference is doing this for us. This coming year, we're having conventions in all three states, legacy ministries conventions. We're bringing folk together in
Mm,
person. And in October next year, it's already in the conference calendar.
that's
We're
beautiful.
having a gala, Legacy Ministries gala. All right.
Mm.
So we're trying to put the emphasis back on affirming those who spent their lives affirming others. And we
Wow.
just feel in the South Atlantic Conference. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for my fellow administrators, Ella Preston, Ella David Smith, Mrs. Marquita Mosley, and our Vice President for Pastoral Ministries, Mrs. Kim Gedo, Vice President for Education. Um, we are the administrators of the conference, and I can tell you when I brought this thing to the table. Let me give a little anecdote as we get ready to close. I know while I was wrestling with Lord, what do we do here? How do we fix this problem? How do we meet these needs that I'm seeing? Pastor Paul published something on Facebook, and I called him. I said, "Man, that situation you put on, that's in my neighborhood, isn't it?" He said, "Yes."
Yeah.
And we got together. I remember it was a Thursday, and we talked. And I said, "I'm in the process of making a proposal at our table." And literally within 2 weeks,
Boom.
AdCom had bought into the idea, and we created the terms of reference. If you go to our website, South Atlantic, that's sacsda.org, and click on About Us and then Official Documents, you see the terms of reference for how we structured this ministry. And as a conference leader out there watching, and I know I share this link in Adventist Professional Ministers, so there are conference leaders in that group that are watching this right now. Go to the South Atlantic website, again, sacsda.org, click on About Us, and then click on Official Documents. You see the terms of reference for what we're doing and how it's structured. And the last thing I would like to contribute is that if you're a South Atlantic Conference member, you attend a South Atlantic church and you're watching this tonight, you fall in one of those three categories, or you
Mhm.
know someone who does, please reach out to us at legacy@sacsda.org. I think it's on the screen somewhere. Legacy@sacsda.org. We're in the process now of doing some work on the website. We're putting up a page soon as we create a new website, which is a password protected page, which has the contact information for those who said they'd like to be a part of an online directory. It won't be open to the public, but retirees and so forth can go there and find each other. Which city are you in? What's your
Hmm.
telephone number? What's your email address? So they can keep in contact. So we put on a survey monkey, and they overwhelmingly said this is something that they would love to participate in because they're looking for community. I'm on that
Fascinating.
stage.
One follow up with this.
Good
Does
stuff.
this translate, or do you think that this can translate into some of our other institutions? My question was about conference level. But what about those who would retire at the union level or at the division level or at the GC level or even some of our educational institutions? We've got people who work at our colleges who they're not really hired by a conference or any other institutional entity apart from that educational institution. Does this translate? Do you see this being able to translate in how we take care of and look after
So
retirees at any other level?
I think what would answer that question is the fact that it's already an inclusive ministry. So it doesn't matter where you worked, as long as you live in that conference's territory, you're part of the ministry there. So I think that would cover whether you're at the union, or you were at the union, because obviously you're not an active retiree. But again, if you worked in North Pacific Union, you retired in Atlanta somewhere, or in Charlotte, or in Charleston, South Carolina, and you attend one of the South Atlantic church. If you attend a Georgia Cumberland or a Carolina conference, surely I would hope, and I'm hoping that more conferences, Southeastern, South Central, will see this as a niche area to really do some ministry of healing people who have given so much and tend to get so little back when they need us most.
This might go to every entity of the church, man. Every entity of the church may have a legacy ministry, right? I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Stephanie, we got one more question over there, I think,
I
before we
do,
wrap up.
I do, and I will start with Elaine. As we start to wind down, what are two things that you would like to tell our current workers regarding retirement that would help them when they get to retirement? I probably have said some of it, but what would you share with people that is, and some of it you have shared already. I know one thing you're going to say, so I'm going to take it away from you, and that's service record. So tell me the other two that you would, and then Dr. Ennis, if you start to prepare in your mind two things that you would tell current workers that would benefit them as they prepare even now for retirement.
Well, yes, you took away the first one, of course. Service record, service record, service record. I can't emphasize that.
That's good.
And you are never too young. Some of our young people think they're too young to think about retirement and start planning. You're never too young to think about retirement. Never too young. Ooh, I think I'll stop there because there's so many. I'll stop there. Just your service record, plan as you 10 years out, become debt free. Get rid of unnecessary debt.
Good. Good.
Yeah, I would say if you're a retiree, well, whether you're from the regional retirement plan or wherever, if you're a retiree, period, I would like to, because we're working in partnership with the Regional Conference Retirement Plan through Dr. Baker, they have an excellent program called AMP, and he sends out a monthly email distribution, which has devotionals and tips about healthful
Wow.
living and hobbies that you can enjoy, volunteer opportunities. Dr. Baker is doing tremendous work in that space, and so I would encourage you to go to the regional retirement plan. Again, whether or not you're a retiree from the regional work, just go there just for the ideas that they're putting out. I've looked at the website; they have great stuff that's going on. So that's the one piece. The second thing I'll say is, as you plan to retire, because I'm 57 years old, I'm a little ways from retirement. If God blesses me to live to see retirement, I already have in my head what I want to do after retirement. So don't wait for retirement to come upon you. Plan ahead and decide what you will do, so that when retirement comes, you're not left out in the cold, and you have no reason to feel for like you have no usefulness or community. Create your own. Plan ahead and do something for retirement.
Wow. Wow.
If you
Throughout
can
this
put on our
program,
website,
right.
they can go there, and that's where they can find the AMP program and the Adele program that he mentioned about that Dr. Baker's doing. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
There.
So you're saying in this website here, you could find Dr. Baker's program, right? The
Yes.
regional.
Yes.
Okay. That's good.
Absolutely.
It's open, and the HR directors in the regional conferences get the information, and they generally have a list of retirees, so that information should be going out to those individuals through the HR departments at the regional conferences.
All right. Well, listen, I've been sitting back, kind of listening to what's happening here, and man, I'm just overwhelmed with the information that was given today. That, listen, there is community when we retire, and there is still family for our survivors of the retirees, and to have this type of program and to have those things in place for our workers when they retire is enormous. I think if more people can get this information as early as they can, and I know they get it, they get it through workers' meetings and all that, but I think if the workers going to take it seriously, I'm not saying that they don't, but Pastor Paul, when we came in, I don't know how much we were thinking about retirement, man. We're just there, but the more we can really internalize this information, I think the better we will be when that time comes. Definitely.
Can I give you a different mindset as we sort of
Yeah.
wrap up? as an HR person, one of the things that people often think about is retirement. And as a young person or even a middle-aged person, um, a lot of times you don't necessarily plan for retirement. However, I would challenge our workforce. I would challenge people. We have seen so much loss in our churches, and a lot of it we see with older people. You know, we tout they've lived a great life, but our pastors are on the road a lot, and tragedy strikes families. Tragedy
Mm,
strikes families. So preparation isn't just necessarily preparing for retirement. And that's one of the things I try and share with our workforce. You know, if our pastors, a lot of our pastors have multiple church districts. Those who know me know my spouse was in a horrible car accident and broke his neck. Like life happens, and preparation starts now. So you know, if you're a parent and you have children, you should be looking, and a spouse and or a spouse, you start to make preparations for the care of them should you lose your income, not because of retirement, but because of a disability, because of an illness, or because of death, unfortunately. So retirement is ceasing work, but how that work ceases is not just voluntary. It could be
right.
involuntary
That's
ceasing
right.
of
Good
work.
That's
point.
right.
And
Yes.
so
Good point.
when you think of retirement in that context, then you plan now. You know, if we have pastors who have children who are one, and I spoke to a pastor today, in fact, he has an infant, I believe, under one, and one that may be around two. So if something happened to that pastor, how does that income get replaced, or what happens to those children? So I would encourage our workforce, not just our pastors, but our workforce, if something
Hmm.
should make them incapacitated and they're unable to work, they are in fact retired. You know, they may get some disability and so forth, but
Hmm.
just think about retirement in a different kind of way.
Hmm.
Wow. This has been a fascinating conversation tonight. And I just want to thank our guest again, Miss Elaine Allston, Dr.
Yes.
Everton Ennis. Thank you so much for sharing what you've shared tonight. Thank you for what you both do in your respective places.
That's right.
Um, you know, we have heard, it's true, we have heard some messy stories and some tragedies along the way. But I want you to know that my heart is encouraged to know that there are people like you who care about our workforce, who care about some of the mistakes that we have made in the past, and that you are making efforts and strides to correct them and to do better. You make us feel like we're in the right place. So thank you again. Thank you so very much for what you do, for sharing what you have shared tonight. We have been blessed. We want to thank our audience tonight. Those of you who have come
Yes.
in and you have listened and you have shared
Yeah.
and you have typed and you have engaged. We want you to know that we're here because you're here at the Pastors Roundtable. So thank you so much for being out there tonight. If you have enjoyed tonight's conversation, if you've been blessed, if you've learned something, would you do one thing for me tonight? I just want you to type a one, the number one in the chat. I want to see if we can fill this chat
Let's fill it
space
up.
with just some ones tonight. If you've been blessed, if you've learned something, if it's something that you know that you need to share, want to share with somebody else, just put that one in the chat tonight. We want to know that you're there, and that you've been blessed, and that what we are doing has been beneficial and edifying to you. In the
And can I give a
meantime,
shout? Can I give a
yes,
shout out beforehand? Because I'm not
please.
always on, so let me give a shout out. Yes, you know, my mom is on here, and she is a
Uh-oh.
retiree, and the spouse is
Hey.
someone who was a worker for the church, and so I'm sure she is appreciated. So hi, Marvin G. Kelly, that is my mom, so I have to give
All
her a shout
right.
Hey. All
and so
right.
thank you for joining us this evening. And I do want to answer one thing. If you're a worker on here or an ex-worker, contact your HR department in your local conference, and they can give you this information as well. So make sure you connect. If you're in South Central, give me a buzz. If you're in, you know, one of the other regional conferences, call your HR folks. They know this stuff.
All
All
right.
right. Praise God. Well, listen, everybody, thank you again for joining us tonight on the Pastors Roundtable, where we aim to help you keep ministry relevant.
Resourced.
And real. God bless.
Good night, everybody.